I wonder what would happen if an ink company decided to go ahead and poll a fountain pen community at, I don't know, Reddit, to see what their next color should be. Oh yeah, we already know what that would look like. So I know I'm a little late to the party here, but Diamine is one of those companies that occasionally goes out of their way to ask people what colors they would like to see. And this is one of those colors. The reason I'm late to this party is because I thought I already had my perfect, burgundy color, and that was Burgundy Royale. Turns out I may have been wrong with that assumption, and we're going to take a look at that today with Diamine Writer's Blood. So this is one of those inks where, as you can see on the label, this ink color was chosen by the members of r/Fountain Pens, a wonderful Reddit community of fountain pen enthusiasts. If you aren't a part of the community, join, and there's the link for it. I personally am not part of this particular fountain pen community, but I am part of a Discord community that has a lot of people from that community, and I think a few of the moderators. All in all, it's a pretty good group of people. So if you're on Reddit and not part of that fountain pen community and watching this video, go join. You really should. Now, I was so sure that this was going to be the last Burgundy ink that I needed that I decided to only get the 30ml bottle of this particular ink. I think I made a mistake. Personally, I keep looking at the 90ml bottles and going, maybe I should have gotten one of those. This is a very good color, and the label on the bottom is actually pretty close to the color you're going to get. So if you're a fan of Burgundy Royale, and you like some KPIs that are better behaved, then pick up Writer's Blood. This is one time where the community did good. I wasn't a fan of the gray color that they did a while back. I think it was Earl Grey or something like that. Just not a big fan of that. I don't like gray inks. But you give me a good red ink like this, and you have a winner. I mean, just flat out, it's something I'm going to want to buy. Especially like when I go out of my way to buy the cheese wheel like this. This is a good ink. This is a good bottle, but this is better. And I'm gonna have to get a bigger bottle of this to replace this. And, it is what it is. So let's go ahead, take a look at the KPIs, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll probably, if you don't have Writer's Blood in your collection, you're probably going to end up getting it. First up, we're going to take a look at the dry times. This is a very respectable performance out of Tomoe. We are functionally dry at just over 15 seconds. Realistically, I would say this is a 17-second dry time, which out of a broad nib is still extremely respectable. And when we move on over to Rhodia, the performance is what we would expect. Rhodia is going to absorb the ink much quicker than Tomoe, so we are functionally dry at just over 10 seconds, with it being close the book dry by 15. So if you're looking for a fast drying Burgundy ink, this one is actually pretty close. It's not sub 10 seconds, but it's close enough for my liking, and I'm pretty sure even the fastest writers would make an exception if they like this particular shade of red. Speaking of the color profile, I like what we're seeing from the lighter mids here as we transition into the deep mids and then into the transition tones themselves. This is a nice velvety burgundy with the lighter mids kind of reminding me of a bold red beans and rice, if you're familiar with that ink from Papier Plume. But I think they actually did that better here on the mids, and you'll see as we do the writing portion that this ink even manages to top that one, and that one was a good performer in and of itself. You can also see here in the velvety transitions that if you do get quite a bit of ink on the page, you will be greeted with a nice subtle sheen as you transition into the black layers underlying the ink. All in all, I like what Diamine did here. Would I call it a true red? No. Would I call it a nice burgundy? Yeah, it's definitely a nice burgundy, and still saying, one that you should get. But let's go ahead and take a look at water performance and see if that's up your alley as well. Before that though, let's talk about Patreon. See this dog? I bring these dogs up for one reason. Right now, I'm doing a video instead of spending time with them. So if you click on that Patreon link down below and donate as little as $2 a month, then you can take solace in knowing that you're helping make up for the time that their owner is making these good reviews for you fine folks here on YouTube, instead of tossing the same purple dinosaur back and forth and back and forth. I don't know what it is about that dinosaur, but my youngest seems to enjoy that toy, so hey, it is what it is. And that brings us to the water sample. You can see that as we put water on the page, we do get a little bit of color lift, but nothing that I would consider major, which, as we get the water off the page, you can see that what we're left with is a very good ghosting layer that actually retains much of the burgundy overtones found in this ink. And that makes it pretty easy to recover. It's not that we're left with a faint ghosting layer, but we're left with something that's bold enough that even with quite a bit of glare on the page, like, oh, I don't know, if you were filming with studio lights, it would still be something that you would be able to easily recover. So let's go ahead and take a look at the writing sample and see if this ink is definitely something you should go out and buy. First up for the writing sample is Royale. As you can see, we are using my trusty Kaweco Lilliput with a bold nib. That way we can get consistency from one ink test to the next. First thing I'm noticing here is I may have been wrong when I was talking about where this ink is going to primarily reside. I initially said it was going to be more of a red beans and rice feel. No, that's wrong. We are getting a true burgundy from start to finish, and I'm not noticing any line width variations either. The bold nib is still looking bold from start to finish, and that is the performance I want to see on display here. I don't want an ink where I'm seeing any flow or feed issues, and we're not seeing any of that here. We're seeing a good flow, a good lubrication, no hard starting or skipping, and this ink made it about 5 hours with the cap off before any of those issues were present. Why would you leave a pen uncapped for 5 hours? I don't know, but that's one of the tests I do, so that's just what we had on display here. But overall, on Royale, I like what I'm seeing, and if I end up switching back over to a normal paper instead of continuing to write on Tomoe or Cosmo Air, or whatever I end up switching to once I'm done with all this TR, then yeah, this ink does what I want it to do on a non-exotic paper. Speaking of that kind of paper though, let's switch on over to Tomoe. The first thing on display here is that we are slightly lighter in tone than we were over on Royale. That's not a bad thing. I also spent a little bit more time on this paper writing in formal script than I did over on Royale. And that makes a difference. If you're writing in formal script, the nib is in contact with the paper a lot more often, so less ink is going to be pulling in each portion of each letter. It's going to continue to follow the nib and be pulled along with it. When you're writing in print, each letter is going to have its own pull of ink towards the beginning and towards the tail. So you do expect to see a little bit of a darker variant in print writing than you would in formal script. And you can see that on display here on Tomoe as well. If anything, this difference is a little bit more of a stark contrast. In the formal parts, we do have a little bit more of that red beans and rice resemblance, but once we switch over to print, we are right back into those velvety burgundy tones. And what that gives us is a chameleon of an ink with good KPIs that is able to adapt itself to multiple papers, nib widths, writing speeds, and just overall different situations. And yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons that this ink is a no-brainer for me, and I'm going to have to get a bigger bottle. And that does it for our look at Diamine Writer's Blood. If you like this review or found it useful, hit that thumbs up button, get subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Well, this is going to be fun. $20 says I end up calling Writer's Blood Burgundy Royale at least 40 times this film. This is what happens when I don't script stuff out.